Jason Banker from Lumos Consulting. Today we're going to be going over how to build a policy-based redirect service graph within ACI. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a simple diagram of what our environment is going to look like. As you can see here, we start at the bottom. We have one common VRF. We have a database bridge domain, a web bridge domain, subnets tied to them. And as you can see here, we're going to forward traffic when we want to an ASAV in routed mode, right? So certain traffic that we want to go to the firewall will send, and other traffic will keep within the ACI fabric. Within this model, we do need a separate bridge domain for both interfaces of the firewall. In this instance, we're doing database to web or web to database. But I want you guys to, use your creativity, use your mind. This could be DMZ to web, DMZ to application, whatever. It's just to give you an example of how to use PBR. This is my favorite flavor of L4-7. In this case, we're going to be doing unmanaged mode to where ACI knows about the service graph, but it's not managing the service graph. So all the rules we'll still do on the firewall, the logging, we'll still control at the firewall level, but ACI will know about this device and punt traffic to it when it needs to. So before we get into the fabric, I'm going to pull up my virtual environment. We're going to take a look at the ASAV. One thing I do want to point out right away is if we look at the network adapters, my network adapter 1 is my management segment. This is how I will be getting to it. 2 and 3 are the interfaces I'll be using. Just always know that the ASAV and VMM domain is going to use a network adapter 1. Right, for management. So everything we'll be assigning is to 2 and 3. I will point this out again. I just want to show you right now it isn't in quarantine status. I'm going to pull up the session to the firewall just to give you guys some information on what the firewall looks like. It's a very basic firewall config. Get into it. So if we just take a quick look at the ASAV, I have two interfaces, security level 0 and 100 with some IPs, right? Typical access list. I have web in and DB in, right? And we're gonna be allowing web to talk to database on port 3306, right? And allow SSH from web to DB to happen through the fabric. And I'll talk about more about this, but that's this rule set here, right? We have 3306 that we're allowing through the fabric. And again, this is just for examples. I mean, it can be done any different ways. If we take a deeper look, I do have typical access list, access groups here, right? And one important thing is that I have some static routes pointing in and out of those interfaces to hitting the gateway on the fabric, right? So we will jump back into this ASAV when needed. I'm going to close it down for now. We're going to take a look at our ACI fabric. Close some tabs, right? So we have a PBR Lab. Right, to start at the top, we have a common VRF that I named prod. We have two bridge domains right now, a database and web, very generic configuration, default configuration. We're flooding, endpoint learning, hardware proxy. All right, same as both. I have an application profile called app tier. Right, we have a web and DB EPGs. We can take a peek at one of them. My EPGs are assigned to a VMM domain. Right, and we do have one host in each one of these EPGs. So we'll take a look. I do have 10.1.1.10 host, right, living in web, and I also have one in DB, 10.1.2.10, right? So very, very typical ACI environment. But now we're going to insert an L4-7 PBR service within here. So first off, we want to go to L4-7 tab up top. We want to just verify that we have our packages. So let's go ahead and take a look. I have a bunch of different packages. We'll be using this ASA 1.2. So we do have to do an installation of packages. We can get this off Cisco's website, right? And we just do a simple import. If we want to import a device package, we download the file, browse to it, and upload it to the API. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into the tenant. What we want to do to start, we want to go ahead and build our bridge domains, referring back to this diagram for the firewall and, the database and web for the firewall. So we're simply going to come into networking, right? We're going to create two new bridge domains. Just create a new bridge domain. Let me close this guy out. We'll open a new bridge domain. I'm going to simply name this firewall DB. Right, we're going to select our VRF. Right, we're going to next. Finish. We come in here. We're going to go ahead and add a subnet. All right, take a quick peek. This subnet for DB needs to be 172.16.2.1. 24. All right, we're going to submit that. We can keep it private to the VRF. Now we need to go ahead and do the exact same thing for the firewall lab. And yes, I could use the wizard to go ahead and assign the subnets. I'm not the type that uses the wizard. I like to go through the navigation panel on the left-hand side, just so I know where to find things at a later date. Okay, so I have both my subnets created, my firewall databases. There's one more thing we have to do here. Now, within 3.1, we still have to do this in 3.2 code. This will be removed once we have a service graph and ACI node service graph, but we want to remove endpoint data plane learning on these bridge domains, just the ones that are attached to the firewall. And why we want to do this is we want to learn the interface through the firewall, not through the ACI fabric. So we still want to punt traffic to the firewall and learn behind the firewall rather than learn through the fabric itself. So I'm going to do that on both. And without this, your PBR will not work correctly. And again, in 3.2, it'll automatically be done for you. But right now, we are turning endpoint data plane learning off. Okay, so now we have our bridge domain set up. We need to now go in and build our L4-7 service. So I'm going to come into Services, L4-7. We're going to come in and build a new device. There's no devices there today. We're gonna open it up. As I said earlier, we are going to be building an unmanaged. So ACI will know about the device, but will not be controlling it. So we're just going to name this PBR Lab, service types firewall. In this case, we're doing virtual. I need to choose my VMM domain where this is attached to. Right, it's going to be a single node. We're going to have a context aware single. I do need to select my VM. Let's go ahead and find my VM. We're going to say JSON ASAV PBR. Okay. So now we want to come into our device interfaces. Right. I'm going to name this 0. Now I explained the NICs earlier. One is used for management. So my first one available to me is network adapter 2. Right. We're going to update this. And I'm just saying the name of this is the name of a gigabit Ethernet 0 on the firewall. And we're going to do the same thing for 1. Network adapter 3. Now I could go through here and configure all the interfaces of the firewall. I only need 2 for this instance, so I'm only going to do 2 right now. Here is where we want to do the interfaces and what is assigned to that. So I'm going to say the web interface is assigned to gigabit Ethernet 0 as my firewall states. And I'm going to say my DB interface is assigned to 1. Right, so what we have here is our device interfaces, the network adapters on the vNICs itself, and then we're going to tie a name to those concrete interfaces that we just created up here. So I should hit finish here. Right, one thing we want to do is we want to go in. One thing that's pretty common when we're building an ASAV or even a service graph, we're going to get an error. So one thing we're going to take a look. We're going to look at the error. This is pretty common. It's going to go through its 2-minute life cycle of clearing out. Soaking clearing's good. That means the default is being cleared. We just need to wait. So I'm gonna pause the video and wait till this disappears. It's going to be about 2 minutes, and then I will get back into it once this is cleared and we can move forward. Okay, I'm back with the fault cleared. Right, again, it takes about 2 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and clear this and acknowledge it is gone. So now once we have our device, we can take a look at our device, get the policy. It's again everything we built earlier, so we can go ahead and move forward. So next thing we want to do is we want to create a service graph template. So one of the things here is we want to create a service graph template. We want to give it a name. We're going to say PBR Lab. Right? We want a new graph. We want to take this firewall or this device, and in some cases we can do one or two of these devices and put it in the path. Right? We want to give it a quick name. Right? And then we need to go ahead and say whether we're routing, we're transparent, and whether we're PBR. So with PBR, we do need to have route redirect selected, right? And we can go ahead and submit. So now simply we have a service graph template that now we want to apply, right? And we want to have some more configuration items, but we want to apply this service graph template. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to get some more information asked of me. So within this service graphs template to apply it, we want to know the consumer and provider EPGs. So consumer is going to be web, right? And provider is going to be DB, right? We want to create a new contract. So what we're doing here, we are telling the service graph what ports we're actually going to send to the device and what to expect when we're using this service graph. So in this instance, we're going to do SQL 3306. That's the port we're going to be testing. We need to create a rule set, so we'll do SQL, right? We'll do IP, TCP, and again, we can have multiple ports here. This is just for an example. I'm going to keep it simple, 3306. All right, we're going to update this. So now we have a contract name, SQL 3306. We have the IP or filter created with 3306. All right, we're going to go ahead and hit next. Now, there's a couple things we need to specifically do for PBR. One of the things we have to point it to the right BD. Now, this looks correct, but it's actually not. We need to select the firewall web, right? We need to select what interface. It's going to be web, and then we're going to do the same thing for DB. So this needs to be changed. Make sure you select the interface because it will be pre-populated, and it's usually wrong. So we're going to go ahead and select web and DB, and the other portion is the redirect policy is the MAC address of the firewall, right? So we need to come in and create a cluster device redirection policy. I'm going to just call it web MAC. We want to come in and we want to create a destination, which again, I need the IP and MAC address of the firewall interface. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up. I'll show you how to quickly get this. We'll restart this PuTTY session. We're logged in. We want to do show interface web. Right, it should have everything we need. We can go ahead and we can grab the interface IP, and we're going to type that in there. We now want the MAC address. So this is the MAC address of that interface. We're going to go ahead and we do have to give it the format of what ACI wants to see. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Right. We can go ahead and select this. So again, interface IP, interface MAC address, and we can hit submit. Should pre-populate that now we have web MAC in the redirect policy. And we can come in and create a new one for DB. And we'll pull open the firewall again. We will do the same thing for the DB interface. Okay, submit. So now we have our redirect policy correct. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit finish. Right, after creating that, we're going to take a quick peek at our contracts. I do have a contract created now called SQL 3306. If we take a look at that, the key here is to look at the contract subject. right, with the service graph that we're pointing to, PBR Lab, right? So this is key here. We want to point this traffic to the service graph. So 3306, we're sending to the service graph. Next thing we want to do is we want to come into our ASAV and we want to see if the ASAV was configured for those settings. All right, so if we take a look, you can see network adapter 2 and 3 were automatically configured by ACI to support the firewall web and DB interfaces. So PBR looks set up. There's one more thing we have to do in the fabric. So I did state that I also want SSH to go through the fabric, not the firewall, right? So if we come into SQL 3306, we do need to create another subject, right? So let's create a contract subject. We're going to call this SSH, right? We're going to have a filter. Actually, I was going to build it in there, but it will actually jump out. We will go into our filters. We'll create a new filter called SSH. All right, simply call it SSH. Let's see, 22, we'll update it, we'll hit submit. All right, we'll come in and create another subject, SSH. Now the key here is we do not want this to go through the firewall. Okay, so I'm gonna just hit update and submit. And now we can see our two subjects, the one that was created by the L4-7 template. We have PBR Lab, send it to the firewall, SSH, keep within the fabric, right? So now we are able to punt 3306 to the firewall, keep SSH externally. So now we want to test this out. Right, so I'm going to pull open my VM environment. Right, we are going to open our Ubuntu Web 1 box. We are going to log in. Take a look. We are going to SSH to the DB interface. You can see we have a connection. We'll jump into the firewall. We'll do show access list. No traffic was sent through the firewall. So we are able to SSH to this box internally through the fabric just via normal routing. Okay, so you can see all my hit counts are still 0. Nothing took place here, right? Let's go in here and give us a new. So we know SSH works. I'm going to cancel out of this. But now we want to test 3306. Now 3306 isn't even turned on my dev box, but we're just going to do a telnet to the DB, excuse me, not the dev box, the DB. We're going to telnet to the DB IP and use 3306 and see if the port's open, right? Or see if we can get a connection at all, right? So we have enabled to connect, connection refused, which is actually a good sign that we are being told it's getting there, but 3306 is not open. If we take a look at our access list, right, we can now see that 3306 was sent through the firewall. We now have a hit count. If I scroll up, this was 0 before. Right, so now we know our port 3306 is being sent to the firewall. Whether it's open or not, that's up to the server if we're allowing it on the firewall. But SSH is staying internal. Again, use your creativity. We could use this for storage traffic. We keep storage within ACI and everything else through a firewall. We can punt all HTTPS and HTTP traffic through the firewall where other ports stay local. This can be used in many different ways. Definitely a slick way to do L4-7. The gateway does not need to reside on the firewall anymore. It can reside within the fabric and just send what traffic we want. So I'm seeing a lot of customers today use this and really like the functionality of this and the control that they can do. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and until next time.